Following victories over Manchester United and West Ham, Newcastle United are third in the Premier League table and look dead cert for Champions League qualification. But according to managers, players and fans of other clubs, they're doing so not through any great skill, but through the use of several underhand tactics. Or to put it another way, they're just shithousing their way up the league. Hello there everybody, Adam Cleary, FourFourTwo here. Please do hit the subscribe button, new content every single day. But Newcastle United, they're a bunch of dirty, rotten, horrid cheats, according to quite a lot of people this season. But are they? Are they really? Let's have a look. Which is obviously a very nebulous term in football, doesn't have a clear or defined meaning, but I think we'd all agree it's stuff like time wasting, harassing the referee, giving away bad fouls to break up the play, going down very easily, just any kind of underhand tactic you can use to gain an advantage on your opponents. But the thing is, on every single one of these metrics we can measure, Newcastle United aren't really doing them. In terms of the number of fouls they commit, the amount of times they are fouled, and even the number of yellow cards they get, Newcastle is somewhere from bang in the middle of the table to right at the bottom of it. Statistically, they're one of the cleanest teams in the entire league, but the one number that people keep going back to this season is ball in play time. They love to time waste, apparently. Here's a brilliant graph that I've just barefaced stolen from Opta that shows Newcastle's second bottom in terms of all the time the ball spends in play during their matches. The league average for this is something like 55.5% of the time the ball's in play, and Newcastle are way below that at 52.3%, like 3% lower. And what does that equate to in real actual time? Let me just quickly use my calculator here. Around 2.5 minutes. That means the ball is spending an extra, like the length of a Dead Kennedys song out of play for Newcastle than it is for most other teams in the league. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't have an impact on a game, but you are not going to look at me with a straight face and say that Eddie Howe has successfully hacked football, and the way you get a team out of the bottom half of the Premier League and into the Champions League places is by having it out of play for about 2 minutes 30 seconds more. Let's be normal about this. And besides, the thing people seem to forget about that stat is it always takes two teams to tango in this regard. It came to everybody's attention when Newcastle did genuinely try and frustrate Arsenal away at the Emirates. They did try and keep the ball out of play. They did try and restrict their chances. They did try and limit their opportunities to score a goal, and everyone was up in arms about it. But the thing is, not 3 days before, Leeds United had turned up at St James's Park and tried to do exactly the same thing. They thought Newcastle would play through them and score a lot of goals, so they tried to limit the number of chances. They tried to restrict the time the ball was in play, and they got a 0-0 there, just as Newcastle got a 0-0 at the Emirates. And the fact is, Newcastle have had a lot of games like that at home this season, which has no doubt dragged that average down. Crystal Palace managed to get a point there by doing pretty much exactly the same thing. Bournemouth left with a share of the spoils after barely venturing over the halfway line for the first hour. It took an 89th minute winner to see off Fulham after they'd arrived with a game plan designed to restrict opportunities, and even a 4-0 thrashing of Aston Villa only arrived after a first half in which they were stopped from doing pretty much anything. So it shouldn't really come as a surprise to anybody that Newcastle's games tend to have the ball in play less than other teams, but that's because they're in that middle ground right now where they're good enough to go and frustrate some of the bigger sides, but they're not so good that the rest of the league don't think they can frustrate them. So that does beg the question then, if they're not deliberately time wasting all the time and giving away stupid fouls and diving all over the place and getting booked for just being a bunch of horrible little twats, then how are Newcastle doing this well this season? And, well,
just really good.
And just to quickly address the elephant in the room here, because whenever you try and lavish praise on a good Newcastle performance, you get people shouting, money! It's money! It's because they're spending loads of money! Look at all the money they're spending! Look at this graph. Over the last 5 seasons, which is about as long as it takes to build a squad, Newcastle have spent considerably less than Everton and Wolves and about the same as Aston Villa. And if we're just going off this season, which is when they're supposed to be this financial powerhouse, they've spent less money than relegation-threatened West Ham and almost exactly the same as Nottingham Forest. So yes, undoubtedly Newcastle United have spent money and they've added a lot of quality to their squad as a result, but if football should have taught you anything at this point, it's that money spent guarantees absolutely all. It's what you do with it, and it's what Newcastle have done with it that's got them into this position. So again, just a quick look at the way Eddie Howe has set them up this season. He's very rarely deviated from this 4-3-3 system. And what you hear talked about a lot with Newcastle is how they're a high pressing side. But the thing is, if you look at the numbers, they're not the most high pressing side in the league by any stretch of the imagination. They don't win the ball back in the opposition third anywhere near as much as some other teams. It's what they do with this high press and the way they execute it that makes it so effective. The key to it all ball is this man here, Bruno Guimaraes. And while it might sound counterintuitive that the most important person to your high press is actually your deepest lying midfielder, it's how he enables the rest of the team to move around that makes it work. He is statistically, and I've got a graph, in the top 5% for take-ons for midfielders in all of Europe this season. That means that he is virtually impossible to press, which means when the ball comes into him, which it always does in the build-up phase, you cannot really close him down and you can't really get the ball off him. And while Newcastle have got a lot of players who are very comfortable on the ball, their centre-backs are excellent, the goalkeeper, etc., what Bruno does is he will either beat a player or play an excellent pass that allows the whole team to move up as a unit. And when they do get into the final third, there's a lot of things they like to do with it there. Sean Longstaff makes excellent runs to support the centre forward, even if his finishing is slightly wayward. Isak's great at dropping deep to receive the ball and bring others into play. St. Maximin can come inside when he's over there. Joe Linton was great at getting around the back post waiting for a cross. But it's down the right that they do most of their attacking. At early part of the season, Almiron offered them a direct route to goal coming in from that sort of position, and Bruno would float in here and be really good at finding him with either balls over the top or balls through the defence. And if I just lean over, Kieran Trippier would get all the way up that side of the pitch. He would be easily found with the space that's created either by Murphy or by Almiron, and he would put those crosses in that either go to Wilson, to Isak, or to Joe Linton arriving late. They had loads of really good direct routes to goal. But the real key to this is what it means when these attacks don't work. If you imagine Newcastle lose the ball in this kind of situation, either attack breaks down or the defender makes a tackle or something like that, they are so aggressively set to then go and win that back. So it's not a high press that involves a centre forward chasing down a defender as he passes it along the back four. It's a high press that involves several members of the team all converging on the ball in the final third. And if we just really quickly overlay their heat map for pressures, this is exactly where they try and win it back. They're more than happy to sit compact and deep in their own half. They don't put too much pressure on the opposition in these areas. They're quite happy to just do traditional defending, like heading the ball away or intercepting, things like that. But when the opposition have the ball in this area, they are on you. Just to quite neatly illustrate this point, this is their first goal in the recent victory over Manchester United, a team I think we can all agree that have quality players and are quite good at playing out of these situations. Here they are absolutely penned into their own final third. This is the point at which the original attack breaks down for Newcastle, and if you look, there are 6 players all within a couple yards to the ball, alive to the prospect of winning it back. They attempt to play it into Martial, who, despite being in the middle of his own half, is their furthest forward player, but Sven Botman wins that challenge and gets it back. And from the moment this is turned over, you can see just how stretched and disorganised Manchester United are and how many players in dangerous positions Newcastle United still have. They move the ball to the opposite side where Marcus Rashford has to go into left back and nobody's really sure who should be pressing Willock. He gets the ball into Isak, who controls it brilliantly, and because of how disorganised they are in this area of the pitch, none of the 3 players around Bruno Guimaraes recognise his run and go with him. And because of the amount of players they had up the pitch and how aggressive their turnover was, Bruno now puts that ball into the back post where Newcastle have an overload of 3-1. And in that kind of situation, there is only one outcome. And while Newcastle have scored a wide variety of goals this season, they've all still sort of had that kind of flavour to them. Move the ball up the pitch, press them in, win it back, exploit the gaps. So, are Newcastle shithousing their way into the Champions League? No, they're not. They're doing it because they're one of the most tactically efficient and individually determined teams in the entire league. But hey, that's just my opinion. Sure, you've got some of your own, so get them all in the comments below. Everything welcome, and of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I mean that, by the way, that button's really important to me, so please do press it if you'd enjoyed this. We do it every single day. In the meantime, though, thank you so much for watching. I have, of course, been Adam Cleary. This has been FourFourTwo, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.